Hello everyone, welcome back to RM 101. In this webinar, we will talk about pricing structure. We know revenue management came a long way in the last 25 years. Hotelers moved from fixed pricing, rack rate, to dynamic pricing. Remember those old days that you have a price of the day showing on the notice board at your front office? Tell me, how many of you are still using Excel sheets to change rate every day? Nowadays, we use technology softwares like IDeaS Revenue Management System to come up with pricing decisions. In IDeaS, we have 4 ways to provide bar pricing. Number 1, system bar, which is based on our own demand and booking pace. Number 2, web impacted bar, which is influenced by the competitor pricing. Number 3, reputation impacted bar, which incorporates the online review scores if you are connected to the online review sites like Brandkarma or Review Pro. And lastly, user-defined bar. Once again, we always start from the foundation of revenue management: segmentation, forecast, and pricing. Once you have market segmentation structure, you may start building pricing structure. It is also called rate structure. In the pricing structure, you will cover all the price points offered to your customer by market segmentations, and you will keep a logical and reasonable gap between each of the market segmentations. For example, retail rate versus corporate rate versus wholesale rate. Also, you need to incorporate seasonality, day-of-week pattern, and occupancy forecast into your pricing structure. Let's start from the basics. Let's take a look at a little quiz here. What do you think the key is to successful pricing? Would it be to match your product or service with your customers' A, brand consciousness, because a stronger brand can charge more? B, customers' income, because if the customer earn more and they can spend more? C, value perception, such as will the customer understand your product to be? Or D, interest? The answer is C, value perception. What is value perception? Value perception is a customer's assessment of what that you have received in comparison to what they have given. So they ask themselves, by giving up this amount of money, what am I getting in return? Not just the physical product, but also the overall benefits. It doesn't matter what you charge. It is the customer's perception of your price that matters. If the customer thinks the price is too high in relation to the value delivered for the product or service, then they won't buy. If they think the price is too low, then again they may not buy, because they may be suspicious of the quality in relation to the price. The price may not feel right. A customer's perception of what is a reasonable price is more important than what you want to charge for your product or service. And the customer decides what is reasonable based on the perceived value of money, not price. It is creating the perception of value that tells the customer that the price is right. I'm a firm believer that, in the long run, it's always better to add perceived value to your product rather than just reduce your price. Customers are smarter these days, have more disposable income, have more choice than ever before. The key to make the sale is to communicate the value and do it so strongly. Does the price seem to be reasonable in relation to the product or service you're offering? Now you understand the perceived value, then you may ask, how do I define my positioning or optimal price point? Our advisory service team often use price versus value assessment tool to help hotel or service apartment to establish their positioning among competitor set. You can see the vertical axis represents price and the horizontal axis represents value. We use this tool to evaluate your positioning among competitors in terms of the price and customer's perceived value. This chart shows the end result of the tool. We normally go through a list of features to assess your hotel or service apartment's facility or service to come up with a score. If we take the example in the chart, your hotel or service apartment is sitting at the middle as a benchmark. Your competitors are spread all over the chart. Hotels in the top left quadrant are more expensive and offer less value. Those hotels will probably not attract to you at all. And the two hotels in the bottom right quadrant may or may not to be a threat to you as they offer greater value but also charge a higher price. They are the market leaders, and you try to catch up with them. The two hotels in the bottom left quadrant are less than a threat as they are less expensive and have less attribute. Well, bear in mind that if you improve their offerings and move to the bottom right quadrant, they will become a real threat to you. When we conduct price versus value assessment, we highly recommend to do it by key market segmentations, as the price, offerings, and perceived values could be very different by market segmentations. Sometimes we do it by day of week and by seasonality as well. Now that we discussed how your pricing relates to your customers, let's take a look how we can turn this into concrete pricing at transactional level. Pricing at transactional level is managed in most hotels using a pricing structure. A pricing structure is made up of all the rates you could potentially offer to a customer, and it varies by hotels. So if you have listened to the previous webinar about market segmentation and have already built up your own market segmentation structure, now you have to come up with a way to price those market segmentations. Therefore, your pricing structure will often follow the structure of market segmentation structure that you have created. For example, you need to define price for your transient and group business. With transient, you need to determine whether your price will be fixed, dynamic, qualified, or unqualified. For group, you need to determine the price range for serious group and ad hoc group, residential group, and non-residential groups. Now let's talk about dynamic pricing. You may ask, what is dynamic pricing? Fixed rates are the rates that are locked down and can only be changed under certain conditions. In comparison, dynamic pricing can be changed anytime. Fixed price are yearly contracted rates, meaning that a client has negotiated rates with you for a particular time frame or for a certain group of people. In the past, hotels have fixed pricing, which is rack rate, and there are many different rates without fences, and prices are most likely product-based. Nowadays, most of the hotels move from a dynamic pricing. The benchmark rate is the best available rate, and some hotels call it best flexible rate. Other retail rate plans are derivative rate attached to the bar rate. With fences, and pricing are market-based, which means that when you decide the price for your hotel's facility and service, you need to consider the market rate and competitors' rate instead of purely looking at your own product cost. In these slides, we will introduce the basis of dynamic rate, best available rate, and also the derivative rate plans attached to it. Best available rate is also known as best rate guarantee. Some people may ask, I can get a cheaper rate online than bar rate. Why do you call your rate best available rate? The answer is, the cheaper rate you get always comes with fences or restrictions. Best available rate is a recommended rate for the customer who do not have a pre-contract rate and are not qualified for those discounts at that time, and it always comes with flexible cancellation policies. Best available rate is defined as the optimal rate to quote at a certain time, and it changes all the time. Best available rate may change constantly based on the demand forecast, because best available rate requires a correct balance between demand and price. Value perception, price positioning among competitors, forecast of demand, it all come into play as you determine your best available rate. But having one best available rate may not be enough to capture all the customers in your market segmentations. That's why we come up with derivative best available rate. Those rates are above or below the best available rate and are derived from or in some way linked with the best available rate for that particular day. So if any changes to the best available rate, it affects those rates too. Typical rate plans include value-added package rate, advanced purchase rate, non-refundable rates, and negotiated rates. Let's take a look at an example of dynamic rate pricing structure. This is a slide I always like to introduce to our clients because it is very clear and straightforward. In this chart, dynamic pricing structure is based on the best available rate, and the value-add package is priced $20 above bar rate. Well, we may offer small discount like 10% off bar with light expenses, and offer deep discount like 20% off bar for the rate plans with heavy expenses. The example also shows how forecast occupancy could determine which best available rate to be offered. Based on the dynamic pricing structure, when the occupancy is less than 50% occupancy, the bar rate will be $100. If the occupancy is between 50 to 70% forecasted occupancy, the best available rate will be $120. In both instances, the related rates will reflect the changes as well. Normally, hotel will have about 8 to 12 levels of bar rate based on the forecasted occupancy. So just now, we talked about we offer discount with light or heavy fences. So what are the fences? The examples in this slide, such as non-refundable, Saturday stayovers, deposit, advance purchase, cancellation fee, or minimum length of stay or maximum length of stay. Those are the fences. It is important to establish a pricing structure that prevents the low rate to dilute the bar rate. Perhaps you may want to review your pricing structure to make sure that your rates doesn't eat into each other and that you have a proper fences in place to protect them. Besides dynamic pricing, we understand that we still have some fixed rate with key accounts. Although there has been an evolution from fixed to dynamic rates for retail business, this has not been the case for contracted business. Many of the big global accounts like RFPs are still asking for fixed rate for their travelers. Some hotel chains have attempted to offer dynamic pricing for key accounts, but they are still minority. So we need to make sure we understand how it works and how we can work with this to ensure optimal revenue for our hotel under this model. By definition, fixed rates are the rates that are locked down and can only be changed under certain conditions. These rates are often contracted rates, meaning that a client has a negotiated rate for a particular time frame. For fixed rate contract, in most cases, hotels looking at what is the volume this account could bring to the hotel, thus to determine the rates. High volume hotel offer lower rates, while low volume hotel offer higher rate. It sounds logical, but does it correct? We need to analyze the account beyond the surface. What is the displacement of this account? At what time of the year and day of week does this account come to stay? Do they only stay at your hotel at the busiest night or when the whole town is full? Key account evaluation is needed. You may learn more from our corporate account analysis webinar in the later sessions. Price has evolved over the last decades, and the hotel pricing world is dynamic nowadays. So we have fixed rates that are locked down, and at the same time we have other rates that are dynamic and change all the time. For example, bar rates. Our business and clients move at different pace, and we need to try to manage this somehow. By applying fences, evaluating key accounts, and setting correct rates based on the stay patterns and other criteria we discussed today, we can have fixed rate for the certain client while still implementing and obtain benefit from dynamic pricing. In summary, pricing is driven by the value your customers place on your product compared to your competitors. When you develop the process that tracks your value positioning in the market, you are in better shape to manage the perception of your value. And there are different value propositions and different price points that make sense to different market segmentations. Using best available rate allows you to capture the full value of your targeted market segmentations. Thank you.